Hi, if you are watching, this is Proponents of Artificial Food Dyes. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and share this very cool video. Here we go.
Few people know more about food policy and marketing than Marion Nessel.
So these are the artificial petroleum dyes, and these are vegetable dyes.
And when it comes to the issue of the moment, food dyes, she's got a treasure trove of one of the most hot-button foods, kids' cereals.
So you can see why the food companies don't want to use them here, because kids don't want this nearly as much as they want that. And they particularly want the colors that are going to melt in the milk and turn the milk blue and green and other disgusting things like that that kids like.
A professor emerita of nutrition and food policy at NYU, Nessel's been collecting cereal boxes for 20 years, and she's got copies of boxes going back more than 100 years.
These are complete sets of Fruit Loops, Rice Krispies, and all brand from the time they were first made.
But U.S. cereals like Fruit Loops may soon change as Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has pledged to rid them and other foods of synthetic petroleum-based dyes within 2 years over concerns they may be harmful.
If they want to add petroleum, if they want to eat petroleum, they ought to add it themselves at home. But they shouldn't be feeding it to the rest of us.
These dyes have been giving Fruit Loops their neon sheen for decades.
This is the first one in 1963.
Were they using petroleum dyes in those?
I won't say until 1990 when they had to.
We found the Fruit Loops label from 30 years ago when companies had to start listing ingredients on the package.
Turmeric color, red number 40, natural orange, lemon, cherry, lime, and other natural flavors, yellow number 6, blue number 1.
Okay, so this is fascinating, everybody. What are artificial food dyes? Well, first of all, we need to, no, it's fine. I'll just leave it that way. I'm going to kind of talk to her, but kind of talk to you at the same time. That's okay with everybody. So first and foremost, I love this video because we're part of the problem, consumers, really. So artificial food dyes can be traced back to 1500 BC when early Romans used natural food colorings. So for example, mulberries, carrots, beets, pomegranates, and flowers. So these were natural food additives that they added to create color. So ladies, makeup is colorings, think about makeup. So they would put literally berries or on their lips. That's exactly what they did. When did this idea of artificial come into play? Well, that can be traced back to 1856. The first artificial food colors, this is awful, were produced from coal tar, fossil fuels. Okay, then today, it's not much better. Artificial food dyes come from petroleum oil. Okay, it should be noted, food dyes have no nutritional benefit whatsoever. If anything, if you are ingesting petroleum, I'm going to assume that's not good for you. Okay, fair. Why on earth does the Food and Drug Administration allow artificial food dyes? That's what we're going to talk about today. So companies today, you look at anything processed. Okay, so this is any kind of beverage, any kind of food, especially anything in your pantry. When you have to dry something, when you have to package something, it loses its color. The more a food is processed, for example, a hot dog is processed meats, and they're all put into this, like this casing to make this hot dog. I don't know if most of you knew this, but hot dogs are gray. Who would want to eat a gray hot dog? Nobody. That would look like a spoiled meat, right? So manufacturers said, okay, well, let's just enhance the coloring because it goes to this processing. So processing anything that causes heat or cold or storage, preservatives, they're going to change the color, dull the color a little bit. So there's ideas, well, let's heighten it up. Let's put these these artificial food colorings to make it look pretty. Turns out we consumers like it. We think the color of the food should match our expectation, which the video kind of showed you that with all the cereals, right? So she also said in the video, it wasn't until 1990 that manufacturers even had to put that on the label. They didn't even have to tell us what they were putting in our food. We just accepted it. So now, by law, in America at least, they have to tell you what food dyes are used, what artificial food dyes are used. Okay, so let's go through your packet, everybody. What are food dyes? They are chemical substances developed to enhance the appearance of food by giving it artificial color. And this is really where the beginnings of where they came from in your lead came from. Over the years, hundreds of artificial food dyes have been developed. A majority of them have been found to be toxic. I'm actually on page 1. Food manufacturers often prefer artificial food dyes over natural colorings. Why? They're cheaper. It's less expensive. They have more control over the color. But there's quite a bit of controversy over the dyes they used. Okay, regulatory agents. In the USA, it's the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. In Europe, it's the European Food Safety and Authority. In Japan, they have their own. In China, I don't think this is going to surprise anybody. Guess who's the most lenient? America, the #1 obese nation. Shocker. Not everyone agrees that artificial food dyes should be used in foods. Some food dyes are deemed safe in one country, but banned in another. So it's really hard to assess, well, what's a good dye and what's not? And the answer is there isn't. But in my opinion, if an artificial food dye is petroleum derived, it's probably not the safest thing. So here's what the FDA says. Okay, first of all, there's been no cause and effect relationship for all people that when you ingest this happens. Okay. A lot of controversy is over this. A lot of people say there are certain food dyes, specifically red #3. And by the way, it's been banned in the US, sort of. So it was banned, and then it's still allowed in popsicles and maraschino cherries and candies. But red 40 replaced it, but it has been banned, but it hasn't been. There also isn't a lot of regulatory policing of artificial food dyes. For example, we can say you can't use this and this, doesn't mean they're not doing it. No one's, like going into a manufacturer and saying, let me see what dye you're using and how much of it, right? Okay. So here are the food dyes used in the US. Red dye #3, the name is erythrocene. This is the bad one. Red 40 has replaced red dye #3 because red dye #3 is associated with cancer. It caused cancer in rats. Allura red is used in sports drinks, candy, condiments, and cereals. I want you to think about this: candy, popsicles, cake decorating gels. None of that's healthy food anyway. Yellow #5, tartrazine, candy, soft drinks, chips, popcorn, cereals. Okay. Yellow #6, candy, sauces, baked goods, preserved fruits. Blue #1, ice cream, canned peas, packaged soups, popsicles, icing. Blue #2, candy, ice cream, cereals, and snacks. Y'all, none of these artificial food dyes are in healthy foods. When you think about artificial food dyes, they're all in processed foods, which we can all agree are the worst things for you to eat anyway. The most popular food dyes are red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, and these 3 dyes make up 90% of all food dye used in the US. Okay, what can possibly be good about food dyes? First and foremost, go to page 4. Food dyes change the color and appearance to look more appealing. Really, that's their only function. But let's be real. It matters to a consumer. So Kraft macaroni and cheese tried to do the right thing. They have a really bright orange little cheese packet, if you know what I'm talking about. They come in these bowls. Kraft macaroni and cheese, college kids love them. You just pour water on these noodles, and then you pour the cheese packet in and you mix it up. got a little fast, easy meal, but it's a bright orange powdery cheese and it's not good for you. It's processed. Okay. When they tried to change that color to natural cheese color, it wasn't as bright and wasn't as orange. They tried to do the right thing. Guess what consumers did? We stopped buying it. Okay. If you go to page 5, just like aroma, sound, and texture, the appearance of food is part of the experience. Color plays an essential role in how consumers perceive and taste food. We believe perception enhances the flavor and it stimulates our appetite. So people's judgment about color influences what they eat and how much they eat. Think about color here. According to Charles Spence, he wrote about the psychological impact of food color. Color is the single most important sensory cue to expectations about the likely taste and flavor of food and drink. So if we have an orange soda, we expect it to be grape soda. Okay. Food colors allow us to identify our preferred food choices and in our brains enhance the overall appeal. Really interesting. So whenever you process a food or drink, it has the elements of heat or light, storage, temperature extremes, moisture, it will lose the color. So they go in and they enhance it with these artificial food dyes. You go to the next page, I'm on page 6. So dyes become in 2 forms. And here's the good news about dyes. They're really easy. Dyes are soluble. So if you see like little packets, you probably get these little packets. I think they're called IV fluid packets where you can pour them in your drink. You shake them up. And those are dyes that are soluble in water. So they're just little powders or granules that you can pour into a liquid. So dyes are easy. They're cheap for manufacturers. Artificial food dyes don't cost as much as natural, and they're more stable dyes than natural. Lakes are more water insoluble. So if you have something that's oil-based, you will use a lake. They're stable dyes for coloring products containing fats or oils. So example, when you coat, believe it or not, you coat medication tablets. Those are lakes or artificial dyes. Cakes, donut mixes, hard candies, and chewing gums. And I'm going to apologize right now. Pretty much everything in my candy bowl, y'all, is artificially colored. I think about it this way. I think of artificial food coloring. I think about anything that's tastes amazing. Cheetos, barbecue chips, a Gatorade, a soda is artificially flavored. You know those new soft drink things where you can do Coke, Sprite, and then you can add orange or grape or all that is artificial food dye. All of that is really bad for us. I know. Or petroleum based. Look at it that way. Are food colors safe? Okay, so here's our proponent side. Food colors have been evaluated by several regulatory authorities, not just the FDA, worldwide. The FDA is responsible for determining the safety, and here's what they found. By the time the artificial food dye is processed itself, by the time it is broken down, we are only getting trace amounts of petroleum. So what they're saying is you're only ingesting trace amounts. Well, the assumption is your diet is not mostly processed foods. Okay, so are food colors safe? The FDA evaluates it and it has come to its own conclusion. Based on the chemical composition of the substance, how much color can be consumed, immediate long-term health effects, and other safety factors. If the color additive is approved by the FDA, and it only allows 6, we can assume it is safe to ingest. That's the assumption. There is not just the American FDA, there is a global campaign. Codex Alimentarius is the international food standards body of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN and World Health Organization. They standardize the safe use of food additives across global regions. Numerous developed countries adopt their own standards. In Europe, it's the European Safety Authority. In the UK, It's the Food Standards Agency in Japan. It's specific in standards for foods, food additives, Japan External Trade Organization. So basically, here's how the FDA rules food additives. So those of you that have already done the opponent's side, we know that food additives, food coloring additives have been associated with some cancers. But the reason we can't say that all artificial food dyes are bad is because not every person who ingests a food dye gets cancer. Yeah. Not every person who ingests a food dye has an allergic reaction. Not every person who ingests a food dye has hyperactivity. And that's because it depends on the amount of consumption. And here's where, the opponent side, we talked about 70% of teenagers, their diet comes from processed food, which if you think about that in your lunchroom today, is that probably accurate? Think about what's in your vending machines, all color additives. So yeah, the assumption here is you're not ingesting high quantities. Okay, so I love page 9. Would you drink black water? Would you drink clear Pepsi? How about pink butter or green ketchup? All of those products existed previously and not that long ago. There's a reason these food fads did not last. Here's the bottom line. This is our big argument today. Consumers prefer color of food matches its flavor. There is a link between color and taste that is logical. Red drinks should taste like cherries. Purple drinks should taste like grapes. An astonishing amount of the foods we eat is processed. These foods are already altered from their natural states to make them safe, to remove harmful bacteria, or to make them appealing and prolong their shelf life. So they're talking about processed foods have other additives like preservatives. So when they're processed, they lose their color. Then we add the color back in. 70% of the diet of the average US resident, not even teenagers, is from processed foods. Much of what we eat would not be appealing if it was not colored. Think of food coloring as cosmetics for your food. Really interesting analogy. So I love the bugs at the bottom because I love cranberry juice. And most women are supposed to drink cranberry juice because it helps your urinary tract. Females are most likely to get urinary tract infections, not that men don't. So the next time you enjoy strawberry flavored yogurt or cranberry juice, you may be eating bugs. Okay. These insects did not contaminate your food by accident. An extract from a type of insect known as the cochineal was added by the food manufacturer. Aztecs used these insects to dye fabrics a deep red color. If you crush up 70,000 cochineal bugs, you extract a pound of deep red dye called caraminic acid. This dye is safe to ingest. It's found in a variety of food and cosmetic products that require a red color. But the eating of bugs is unappealing to some people. So Starbucks used to have a strawberry frappuccino. It's no longer on the menu because the strawberry frappuccino, we're not done yet, had this additive in it. And people thought, I'm not eating bugs. I'm not eating cochineal. To find out if your food contains bugs, look for carmine, carminic acid, cochineal, or natural red 4 on the ingredient label. Here's the thing though, how many people look at the ingredient label? Do you? So why are companies using artificial? It's cost. Synthetic dyes, artificial dyes can be mass produced at a fraction of the cost. Artificial dyes look better, last longer than natural ones. Considering the thousands of different substances that color our food, the US Food and Drug Administration has granted approval to only 7 synthetic food colorings. So the good news here is they have deemed these few safe. They only allow manufacturers to use these few. They're not giving them free range to use all of these. And the final products are rigorously tested to make sure they contain no traces of original petroleum. So when artificial food colorings were originally manufactured from tar, which comes from coal, that was pointed out. So they switched to petroleum because it's safer than eating coal. Okay, so let's go to our outline. So because really, there's not a lot to argue in favor. You have one body paragraph. I gave you 4 points in one body paragraph. Both consumers and manufacturers of products prefer to add artificial food dyes. They enhance food and drinks, making them more attractive, improving the overall quality, perception-wise, which in turn sells more products. You know, it's really interesting that we consumers are part of the problem. If manufacturers, if we really cared about our health, we would force them. But we don't. We care more about our perception of food and what color is. So this is the FDA, the 7 that they've approved of, the top 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6. I love that, you know, the Pepsi, the gray hot dog, there's a logical link between color and food. I think that's kind of a logical argument that we consumers demand and expect the color of the food to match our expectations. I love the Fruit Loops in the video because I would prefer the colored Fruit Loops over the one in Canada, the more boring color. Most food coloring comes from dyes in lakes, which magically enhance numerous products. Because they dissolve in water or they dissolve in, they are soluble with oils. This means ingesting artificial food dyes is better or preferable to, say, ingesting bugs like the cochineal bugs, right? And food dyes are constantly being evaluated by regulatory authorities worldwide. Their purpose, these organizations, to standardize the safe use of food additives across global regions. All in all, consumers desire their foods and drinks to look how they imagine they should, which is why artificial food dyes have been added to processed foods in countries around the world. Almost every developed country in the world utilizes artificial food dyes. I'm guessing a lot of my Indian or Asian kids import snacks. It would be interesting to know what food dyes were on those snacks versus American foods, wouldn't it? And I don't even know, does India require labels on snack foods? It's a good question, isn't it? Do y'all have any Indian snack foods in your house? Look at the label and get back to me. I'd really like to know that because, again, not every regulatory agency is the same. Okay, you're good to go. Yay, we did it.